All right, Dr. Bill, we're gonna get this started and we're gonna get this underway. Welcome back to Temple Talk, everyone. Appreciate you for just coming in to support right now. Here back again by popular demand, my man from Chi-Town, my man Dr. B. Dr. B, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me on, and thank you for everybody for tuning into this broadcast and for bringing your questions. Um, my business is healthcare, so it's empowering you and teaching you guys how to better take care of yourselves. So any opportunity I get to speak to people to help them do that better, all thankful for it. So,
and we are thankful for you, my friend. I told it to you earlier, in our pre-production meeting a few days ago that you were highly requested, and rightfully so. The information that you blessed us with is far beyond anything that we could, ever imagine. And now where we are empowered to do more with our health and take care of every aspect of our health, mental, physical, all that kind of thing. So I don't want to belabor it anymore. Dr. B, first of all, what you been up to since we last spoke?
a lot of community projects. I have paired up with Go Infinite, particularly Pull Up the City. And so we've been trying to bring healthcare to the community in a more accessible way. And one of the simplest ways by doing that is to open up parks in the community, where it's gardens and parks and workout parks. So a lot of youth engagement and such. But that's mainly the main thing I've been up to in community work. There's definitely a lot more, but we'll leave it at that for now.
My man, taking his knowledge into the community, something that's incredibly important to do. That's one of the best and, the most awesome way to give back is to go back into the community, bless them with the knowledge that you fought and you dug down and you learned and imparted to them. And that's how the community grows and gets better. Now, as we transition into, like, last time we spoke, we were still dealing with, COVID and all that kind of things, but we were in a different place. We were still learning. Now we're I don't want to say so much out of the woods, but there's a vaccine that everybody's running to take, and there's so much controversy on whether or not it works. You hear all of that, and what are your thoughts?
All right, so addressing that topic first, because it's definitely the meatier one to address. There are conversations that happen on television that are both scientific and then also marketing, and that has to be remembered. Okay. So in this talk throughout our early period of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was early talk of we need a vaccination so we can end this pandemic and return to life as normal. And so now we have a vaccine that's given use under emergency use authorization. And people have been taking it, and we've heard the controversies with things like Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and even other controversies with Pfizer and Moderna, which we'll get into in a little bit. So now we have that as an option. And I know last time we spoke, we had spoke about essentially things to maintain your health that you could do. And now that COVID's been out for a while, we have a lot more data, right? So this is obviously a very charged conversation because, you have some people, whenever labels are thrown around in conversations, it's usually a very, very charged conversation. But science is a process. It's not a stable thing. It's how you evaluate. You look at the world around you, and then you come up with a pattern of how to measure the thoughts about why what's happening around you is happening. And that process is called science. So you come up with, I think this is why this is happening. Let's test it out. But it starts with an observation first, something you observe first. That's the first part of science, observation. So with these recent vaccines, a lot of people have said things that are not necessarily true, but it's from an emotional perspective, and that's on both sides, whether you're for or against. Okay. Um, so if you're looking to say, what can this vaccine do for me? Okay. The vaccine is targeted against COVID-19. Okay. COVID-19 is different scientifically from SARS-CoV-2, which is the actual infection. To give an analogy, this is no different from saying HIV and AIDS. AIDS is the condition brought about by the HIV virus, okay? Or it's a condition brought about by the HIV virus, because that's another issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we all know that having HIV can lead to AIDS, okay? SARS-CoV-2 is the actual virus that infects your body, okay? These COVID-19 is a series of symptoms. It's a syndrome. Okay? It involves headache, muscle pain, fatigue, and a couple other things. But things that are not atypical of any flu or anything else, but we're particularly defining it as this at this moment. So when these vaccines are against COVID-19, they're not against the spread of the virus. That was not their intention. That is not their design. Anybody telling you different is just making that up. It's not a fact. The only fact is that it's designed to lower the probability that you'll end up in the hospital if you get a COVID-19, if you get a SARS-CoV-2 infection, okay? So essentially, it's supposed to reduce the severity of the symptoms of getting a SARS-CoV-2 infection. For marketing reasons, they say it is a vaccine against COVID-19, and the public gets that confused for thinking it is a vaccine that prevents you from catching this virus, and that's not what it's designed to do, and that's not what it does.
That right there is some heavy information, because beyond the medical or the science behind it, society is dying for a way to go back to normal.
Yes.
And they're dying for a reason to get back to interaction with people. But what I'm hearing you say is, this isn't a cure or something to, all it does is basically lessen the effect. You can still catch it, you can still pass it, and you can still be, taken out by it. So yeah, continue.
That's actually what you said is a very, 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 very important point, because a lot of people are missing that point. We want life to return to normal. And so we've romanticized something that is being used in science, but it's not what it's intended for its use. So that's very, very, and what I'm telling you is literally the data that they've submitted to the FDA for approval. This is all in the data. Now, with that being said, as you mentioned, you can still spread COVID-19 to other, SARS-CoV-2, I should say. You can still spread SARS-CoV-2 to other people, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. They're coming out with reports now trying to say perhaps there's a lessened effect for spreading the virus if you have the vaccine, but that's not conclusive data, because there's plenty of data showing that on the other side, people who receive the vaccine are not only getting some still getting sick afterwards of receiving the vaccine, but then also people around them getting infected as well.
But Dr. B, then what's the point of the vaccine in the first place? I get it to lessen the effects, but correct me if I'm wrong. You're the naturopathic doctor. There are natural things I can do to do that without the vaccine.
Well, here's what's always interesting about vaccination, and it's important to remember. Vaccination, this is by law, a rule of microbiology. Vaccination does not equal immunization. We say immunization, that's just for marketing. Again, don't confuse what's said on television for medical advice versus marketing. There's a reason that you sign paperwork at a doctor's office for medical advice versus when you listen to somebody like Dr. Oz speak on television, it's a marketing program. There are things, there are paid commercial advertisements, etc. So, and I'm not just talking about Dr. Oz, and I don't want to just throw him under the bus, but I'm just saying when doctors speak on television,
Yeah.
understand that there is a role that comes along with that, and it's part of advertisements and such. So at the end of the day, vaccination or not, you cannot be unhealthy and think that there's no issue with COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2. Because as everybody's learned, and even if you look on the CDC website right now, when they tell you when you get a vaccination, the goal is to stimulate the immune system to be protective. So at the end of the road, your immune system has to be functioning. And there are some basic requirements that make the immune system, that allow the immune system to function, I should say. And if you do not do those things, your immune system will not function how it's supposed to. And you, regardless of what therapies you do after you get sick or what intervention you think you can do, it won't work to the degree that you need it to work if you're not starting off at a good basis. This is like trying to bake a cake incorrectly, and then after it's, you put it in the oven and it's baked, now you take it out and you want to put some other ingredients on it to make it taste better. It's not going to work. You got to start it off right from the beginning. So what are some patterns we see through the literature? China was a great example of this because of the way their society is structured. They were able to sequester and set up hospitals, private hospitals for COVID-19 initially from the jump. And so they had a lot of research telling you how they were able to lower their infectious rates very quickly. Some things that are universally known at this point. Vitamin D levels. Now, vitamin D levels are naturally boosted through sunlight. However, depending on where you live and depending on what time of the year it is, vitamin D can be very low because you're not going to synthesize enough. You synthesize vitamin D from your relationship with the sun. There are no, it's not that the vitamin is in the sun. You synthesize it because you have a relationship with the sun. And that should show us something, that we need to be more in tune with nature to be healthy. It's impossible to live unnatural and expect to be healthy because you're living outside of the environment by which you were designed. So it's very important to get enough sunlight. Okay.
But see, as I'm hearing you talk, I'm hearing some parallels and conflictions, because when the pandemic hit, the first thing they told us to do is to stay home.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's problematic. And here's the thing. Medical and government, there's always an issue in medicine in that you have to intervene, because if you don't intervene, then the public feels like you're doing nothing, right? But then sometimes in medicine, and this is known amongst doctors, sometimes doing something is worse than doing nothing. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay? Antibiotics are the best example of that. Right now, we are facing a crisis in the world with antibiotics because they're so commonly prescribed. Now, the most common of infections, whether it's a urinary tract infection, whether it's an upper respiratory infection, they're antibiotic resistant now. So you take a round of antibiotics, and now you're actually getting more sick because you're killing all the good bacteria now. And the pathogenic, the bad bacteria that generates disease is still just living in your system. And they haven't been killed because they're resistant towards those antibiotics. Wow. So a lot of pharmaceutical companies are now trying to move away from antibiotics because we've now created an issue with antibiotic resistant bacteria because of our soaps that we use on our hands, dishwashing soap, everything is antibiotic. And the survivors of that, much like herd immunity, will become immune to the treatment or therapy that is used against them. So those bacteria become stronger. That's an example of how intervening sometimes makes things worse than not doing anything. Okay. Now, so yeah, we were told to stay home during the pandemic, which is not necessarily bad advice.
Yeah, I mean, I love it.
It's definitely been a blessing in a lot of ways for some. It's definitely exposed a lot of things. It's definitely been a moment of trial, but removing ourselves from sunlight is never a good idea, um, especially if you're darker skinned, because you have a more natural affinity to need the sun to synthesize what you needed to synthesize. That's another thing, um, often not discussed in conversations. Melanin is not simply it's not a very good sun blocker. It's actually a better force container of energy. So it takes energy from the sun and then it uses it to boost your immune system. So you'll find if you look in the research that melanocytes and melanin in particular is not just for UV protection, but it's actually for immunity. And this is why that vitamin D levels, though we don't have very good ways of measuring vitamin D levels in darker people, in general, if your vitamin D levels are show to be completely low on a lab reading, your immune system. We know that low vitamin D levels correlate with poor immunity. It's very common for autoimmune disease, skin conditions, respiratory infections. All of those things correlate with low vitamin D levels. So the best thing you can do is get out in the sunlight for a couple of hours a day. Now, because of the unnatural life we live, that might be kind of hard.
Yeah.
So another important thing to do is two main things. Increase your consumption of algae type things, dark green leafy things, not necessarily like kale per se, but algae more so. And also consider a vitamin D supplementation every once in a while. Standard safe dosage is 2,000 units a day, and you could do that for a month just to maintain your vitamin D levels.
So now, if everyone we hear it correctly, so get sunlight, increase, well, basically to increase your vitamin D levels, and then there's supplementation. So along with those things, what are some other things that we can do? Say we get away from the vaccine talk, and we're still, because SARS-CoV-2 is still going to be around.
Absolutely.
It's not going anywhere. It's basically turned into the 2021 version of the flu.
Yes.
And so, with that said, what are some natural things that we should be doing on the daily to help strengthen our immune system, improve it, or put it in a state of ready defense against
Yes.
COVID-19?
So I've been hearing a phrase lately, and people will say, my immune system is activated or working. And I'm like, it's always working. It's never stopped. It never turned off. It might be functioning lower because of things that we're doing and stressing it, but it's always working. It's always functioning. It's always active. Some ways that we can help it are mostly by ways of not impeding it. It's actually one of the better things to do.
What do you mean by that?
So everybody's always like, what can I take to boost my immune system? We actually don't need to boost our immune system as much as we think we do. We just need to stop preventing it from being able to work. So here are some things that we do to stop it from it being able to work properly. Do we drink alcohol? Right? Do we smoke? Including marijuana. There is an issue with
CBD,
hormone regulation and marijuana use, but that's a deeper conversation scientifically. But I'm just saying, smoking, whether it's cigarettes or marijuana, things to consider. Do we sleep well? Do we get enough sleep? Is our sleep disturbed? How are our thoughts? Are we in an anxious state? Because being anxious lowers the immune system. So these are things that actually lower the immune system that are very common that we, in our poor diet, for example. Do you have a high sugary diet? Do you have a diet that's rich in what they call oxidative stress inducing foods? So foods that basically damage your blood vessels, clog your heart, your arteries and such. Do we have these? Are we consuming these things on the regular? Do we drink soda? Are we having sugary drinks that are around like 40 grams of sugar, which is a lot? And that's very common for us to find. Are we drinking a lot of these artificial juices? You know, are we snacking on chips and chewing gum and things like that? These are minor things, but all of them.
I'm gonna tell you, there's a couple of people, quite a few people in the chat right now that are big chip eaters. So right now, you just really,
I'm calling you
really,
out.
but okay. As you continue, Dr. B, I want you to also
Yeah,
do me a favor and hit on, because you said something important that obviously, if those who are not aware, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and you said that your mental health affects your immune system.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
And some people will not understand that. What do you mean when you said that? Because we could eat the you can eat the greens, you can eat, the right foods, but you're saying that you could do all of those things, but your mental health is, if it's affected, your immune system will still be crappy.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
We are tied into our thoughts as our thoughts have a physical reality in our bodies. And we know this because when we take medications to try to alter our thoughts, we take chemicals to then try to alter thoughts. So it does obviously work the opposite way as well, that thoughts affect chemicals, which affect our body.
Mm.
So there's two major components. So when you talk about the immune system, you have part of the immune system are just signals of, like, you have barrier, you have your protection here. When things get by that, you have other little cells may pick them up, but then you have communication of hormones and regulation. And we know how much stress does to hormones. Women know this especially because they are taught that it is normal for their menstrual cycles to have such a strong effect on their emotional states.
Mm-hmm.
And ladies, there's a truth to that, but there's also not a truth to that in the same way, because sometimes what's normal is not healthy. It's just normal because it's common. So you should not be in extreme pain during your menstrual cycle and such. That's not common. So if that is happening to you, you definitely need to get seen about that and talk with a doctor who knows what they're doing in regards to that. But yeah, so your mental state, we've all been in those moments where we've been in school and we're trying to remember something under pressure and we can't do it. And so you might notice your hand, or you might give a public speech and your hand's a little bit shaky. All of these are signs how the mental emotional state impacts the body. So when you when you have negative thoughts and they're constantly, or you're stressed, you upregulate cortisol, which downregulates other hormone signaling in your body. And so what I mean is the more cortisol you'll shoot through your body, the less your body is doing repair for itself. And the less it's repairing itself, the less it's cleaning up the damage that happens through everyday life. And then that leads to more junk being accumulated in your system. And the more junk that's accumulated in your system, eventually the body has to shut down at some point. So the quickest way to get sick is to stop sleeping and eat like a high sugary or high snack food diet, and then you will get sick within the next few days. So it's very common. And if anybody has skin conditions such as eczema or psoriasis and things like that, it's the greatest example of it as well.
So we got a question in the chat specifically about this. It said, they said anxiety caused the reaction to the vaccines. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so there's two realities to that. Well, one, they've marketed the vaccines, and I have to put a little pin in this before I state this.
Mm-hmm.
Not against anybody necessarily getting the vaccine if you think it's best for you. What I'm concerned with is informed consent. Okay. If I take you out and I put a loaded gun to your head and I say, I need you to make this decision, that's not informed consent. I'm making you make a decision under duress. Okay. Informed consent means you're presented with all the possible risks, alternatives, and then with that, and possible outcomes that can happen. And then with that information, you make the decision for yourself. That's what I'm concerned with. So even for people who've taken the vaccine, I've heard advice given when people take the vaccine. Oh, take Tylenol, take Advil. That's actually bad advice scientifically, because typically after you get a vaccine, you might get some fever, you'll have muscle pain, things like that. So people, oh, take an Advil, take a Tylenol. Well, those things decrease your healing time and they decrease your immune system. If you want to generate a good immune reaction, meaning you want to generate the actual antibodies that were supposed to be created from taking the vaccination, you don't want to do that after a vaccine. So, though my recommendation is to not take these experimental vaccines, even if you were to do so, I can give you better advice on how to do it than those who are telling you to do it and telling you to do it poorly, because they're not telling you how to do it in the most efficacious way. So, with that being said, the anxiety on the vaccines. If you are going to engage in any medical procedure, there is a reality of something called the placebo effect, which is about 30% effective in everybody, meaning let's say I was giving you a pill and I said it's going to lower your blood pressure. Just the fact that I say I'm giving you a pill that's supposed to lower your blood pressure, I can give you a sugar pill. And if I do 100 people, about 30% of them, so about 30 people, will get lower blood pressure simply because they feel like the pill is supposed to lower their blood pressure. Okay. So when pharmaceuticals are tested on the market, they are compared to the placebo effect. There is something, so that's the positive affirmation and what it can do for you. There is something called nocebo effect, which is the negative aspect of that, meaning how negative thoughts impact your health. Okay. Which is kind of what we were talking about earlier. So positive thoughts can heal you, negative thoughts can damage you. Okay. If you're anxious and nervous before vaccination, it does increase your risk to have an actual reaction to it. It does. Now, here's the caveat to that. With new vaccines, when they say it's people just having anxiety and that's what's causing it, the question would be, are they saying that because of the science? Or are they saying that to market? Because how would you know? You'd have to test that out, right? They've never shown you guys the data that they've submitted to the FDA to get these vaccines approved, and they haven't been approved yet. But they haven't shown the data. So there was something surprising to people that was happening after they were receiving a vaccine, and I can only speak in the Pfizer one because I know the percentage for that one specifically. They developed swollen lymph nodes, particularly women. This is important for women.
Yeah.
They were developing swollen lymph nodes under the armpit and around the breast area and around the neck, right? Now, women know to feel for a lump. If they feel a lump, you're supposed to get a mammogram because that's signs of breast cancer. So after vaccinations, doctors discovered, quote unquote, that some patients, a lot of patients, were getting swollen lymph nodes. And the conversation jumped to, oh, this is a new thing, like a new side effect that we're discovering from the vaccines of Pfizer. It's not new. They just didn't inform you. 15% of the trial group that they tested when they initially released the vaccines had swollen lymph nodes after the vaccines. So a lot of women were going through things that they could have known from the beginning were a possible risk factor had they just been told. But if you pay attention, if anybody's gotten vaccinations lately for this COVID, they tell you they tell you to sign up for the system to monitor your safety afterwards. They tell you some immediate side effects, but they're not telling you the long list of side effects that the companies have submitted to the FDA. So it is a reality that your anxiety can cause you to have a negative reaction to it, but it is also a reality that the adjuvants, which are the chemical additives they add to vaccines to make your body have an immune reaction, which are things like aluminum and formaldehyde and other very toxic chemicals that are not labeled safe in any other usage. When they inject you with those, your body basically reacts to the toxicity of it. And that is what causes you to have an immune reaction. If they don't add adjuvants, you don't get an immune reaction. So some people have said, well, why do they add mercury into vaccines? Why do they add these things if they're so toxic? Because they have to. Because when you do a vaccine, you bypass the natural immunity of the body. You know how you can get swollen lymph nodes, you can get swollen tonsils, things like that. That comes from your body naturally encountering something and then mounting an immune defense. Well, when you bypass those things, your body has no way of knowing what the heck's going on inside of it because it's thinking it's healthy because those are the sentries. When you vaccinate, it's like you've injected a spy into your body. Well, if you need your immune system to react, a spy is not a good thing. So they have to add other toxic chemicals to it to make you react so that your body will now recognize the toxic substance.
But see, that's heavy. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. So you're saying that they cause the body to cause a reaction. But now my follow-up question to that is, if they didn't have that, would your body still react to the vaccine the way that it should?
No, that's why they add them.
So then what's the purpose of the vaccine? Like, so they need it. So the vaccine doesn't work unless a reaction is caused against it?
Yes. Yeah, you need to generate, because your immune system defends itself by recognizing foreign substances and toxic substances. That's how the immune system works. It has to recognize that there's an issue. If it doesn't, then whatever's toxic inside you just poisons you without you being able to fight against it. At the end of the day, you need your immune system to function. At the end of how, regardless of how you slice it, you can't say I'm gonna, and you're not injecting yourself with health products to make yourself healthier. There is no pill. I want to be very clear about that. There is no pill. There's no shot. There's no injection. There's no medication. There's no foreign or artificial substance that makes you healthier. There is none. The only thing you can do to make yourself healthier is to support the body's natural way of functioning. That's it. And if you don't do that, then you're always going to be in this battle against symptomology, which is what a lot of medicine has become: disease management. It's not about improving health. It's about managing disease. Live healthy with diabetes, live healthy with heart disease. And on that topic, I do want to address the top 3 leading killers in the United States, because that's important.
Excellent segue. Go for it.
Heart disease is number 1. Okay. It's been number 1 for the last 80 years in the United States. And you know what's sad about heart disease? I believe it was President Woodrow Wilson's cardiologist who stated that technically the heart shouldn't age. I'm paraphrasing it, but technically the heart shouldn't begin to age until you're the age of 80 years old. So most of us, unfortunately, are having, we know people that have heart disease and heart attacks and all sorts of cardiovascular issues like strokes in their 50s. That is not, if you look up cardiac age or heart age, most people are aging well before their heart should begin to show any signs of age. And it's only due to lifestyle. Now,
what kind of lifestyle?
So there's personal lifestyle, which we're responsible for: diet, exercise, right? Things like this. Then there's other societal circumstances, such as environmental toxins, stress, prejudice, racism, sexism, things like that we face, that also cause vascular damage to our system. See, doctors are always quick to say, it was your candy that gave you, that's why you have high blood sugar and that's what led to your heart disease. Not necessarily. It could be the stress that you're facing at work. We all saw our brother Barack Obama in office, and how that man would never age a day in his life until he was in office. And we all made memes about how he was aging in the seat because of the amount of stress that was put on him. So, that's another example of how mental stress physically affects us. And I don't know if you've seen Obama since, but he's looking young again.
He looks a lot better.
Yeah, he's playing basketball again. He's having fun with his family, and but that's a part of health. So the word health comes from the German, in English, it comes from the German word meaning whole. And it literally includes mind, body, and spirit. There's never a separation. In Western medicine, they've separated spirit and the mind, and they've made them separate studies. And they call them not as hard, they don't call them the hard sciences, but they call them the soft sciences. And they say your data of your lab work is all that matters. But no, if you give a patient a diagnosis, when you find out you have cancer, the amount of stress that puts on the body lowers your life expectancy and lowers the outcome of a good prognosis with your cancer diagnosis. Meaning, if when you receive that diagnosis of, oh, you have cancer, and the doctor doesn't explain, like, are we looking this beatable? Are you about to die kind of thing? The stress that puts on a lot of people makes them die faster than before they even knew. Wow. So on heart disease, because I really want to address that. It kills nearly 700,000 Americans a year, heart disease, and it's done this for the last like 80 years. So as much as COVID was a pandemic, it was not even close to heart disease in number of deaths. Wow. Heart disease is still number one. Cancer is number two. But so how do we deal with heart disease? Well, first of all, eating the right physical food is a start. Okay. What are the foods that lead to heart disease, and what are the foods that prevent heart disease?
Okay.
Atherosclerosis is the condition of clogging of the arteries. Okay, so your arteries would bring blood to your body, right? Veins bring blood back to the heart. So because of that reason, when your arteries get clogged, and also your heart has to provide blood to itself, and that's another issue, because those blood vessels are a lot more sensitive. So because when arteries get clogged with cholesterol and plaque, things like that, it ends up creating high blood pressure, right? So that's a marker that we need to look at. I live in Chicago, and on the north side of Chicago, the life expectancy is 30 years higher than in the south side of Chicago, and that's not because of violence. Huh. I'm talking violence excluded. I'm talking about because of environmental factors. I'm talking about because of lifestyle factors, access to food. I'm not even gonna say access to healthcare, because that doesn't necessarily lead to better outcomes anyway. Not that healthcare that people think leads to better outcomes. So the foods that cause it, right? Atherosclerosis is the beginning of the hardening of the arteries of the heart. As your arteries begin to harden, you get higher blood pressure. You increase your risk for a stroke, because the blood isn't able to get to where it needs to go, like the brain, and then you have no blood supply there, and you end up having a stroke. It also can lead to a heart attack. All these things. Atherosclerosis begins in the teenage years because of how we eat, and it's Crack Donald's and Murder King that's killing us. When we eat these foods.
Hold on, you said Crack Donald's
and Murder King. Yes.
Wow.
They're killing us. We don't need to go to these places. The KFC, the chemicals that are in these things. One, we're battling with obesity. These things have things in them that are called obesogens, which means they generate obesity. That's what obesogen means, to generate obesity. The chemicals in these foods cause obesity because they are chemicals designed to increase fat storage inside the body, and also to decrease the hormones that make you say, I'm full. So basically, you want more of them. Okay? So when we go to these places and we eat these kinds of food that are very greasy, so we eat a lot of French fries, we eat a lot of fried foods, we eat a lot of fat.
It tastes great. It tastes great, Dr. B.
I know.
It tastes fantastic.
Yeah, our appetites are killing us. Our appetites are killing us.
Stressing me out, man.
So if we want to just simply, well, I'll get to that in a second. I want to talk more on what's killing us on that stuff.
Yeah.
So some of us say, well, I'm going to do better. I'm going to start eating a lot of lean meat. I'll go to lean meat. Well, here's the problem with that. Cholesterol is located not even in the fatty portion of meat. but in the lean portion of meat. So when we go to our lean meats, thinking we're becoming healthier, when we have these issues that we could resolve them, no, we're not. We have to reduce the consumption of these things. It is against our life. Now, it doesn't mean you have to become vegetarian or vegan overnight. It's not what I'm saying. But if you are facing an issue, I guess I should say it like this. If I said you could be healthy for the rest of your life as long as you never had a soda again, would you argue with me about having soda, or would you just give it up? Right. Now, some people, you shake your head no. Some people, when they come with very high cholesterol, and they come with high blood pressure, and I'm like, okay, you need to give this up to stop to stop increasing this, and you need to start introducing this to lower these risks. They're hesitant to do it because they're fighting against the culture that's been ingrained in them that I need these foods. So soul food that we have in the Black community in particular.
Don't do it, Dr. B.
It's killing our soul. It's literally taking our souls from us. We age faster than we should, and we know Black don't crack. But we're actually aging faster than we even should, biologically. I'm not even talking about even just your physical appearance, though you will look younger when you start to change your diet as well. So you could eat these things, but it has to be in moderation if you're going to do that. And you have to choose healthier options of these things. So now, what foods you should start incorporating, right?
Okay.
Whole foods are always the foods that people who are wiser in society look to eat. So if you want to eat bread, eat whole wheat bread. It's the best bread for you to eat. Okay?
Not whole grain?
Whole grain is good. The problem is sometimes they mix grains in there that aren't necessarily the best health for us. So it's way better than eating the heavily bleached bread, like the Wonder Bread looking type bread.
Yeah.
But the dark, rich, whole wheat bread is good for us. Or you could take it more biblical and you could eat the thinner breads like pitas and things that are or more unleavened bread. Those are better options as well. And even when you do eat bread, the best way to eat it is not the soft, floury, fluffy bread. You want to toast it. That's actually better for your health than actually eating it as if it was just like when you do a peanut butter sandwich, you just put
Well, why toast it?
Because you're thoroughly cooking it. You when you do that, you basically make it better on the stomach to digest, and because flour can rise, and then when you eat these things in their softer, fluffier forms, like biscuits, for example, we all like the soft, fluffy biscuits and whatever. The reason they're soft and fluffy like that is because they haven't been fully cooked through. And so those chemicals still have reactions that can happen inside your body, and you want to basically prevent that. So by cooking them thoroughly, the staler the bread, the better it is for your health.
Dr. B, I'm not gonna be up here eating rock hard biscuits, man. What am I supposed to do, man?
You cook them again so that they're more, they're more thoroughly cooked.
But then they turn into weapons, Dr. B. They turn into rocks.
Yeah, but that's better on the stomach. It's better on the stomach. It is what it is.
Oh man. Okay,
now, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. I everything in moderation, even some moderation. Okay, so it's okay to have that fluffy treat every now and then, but know that you don't want to make that a. See, it's not the one cookie you had that hurts your health. It's not the one KFC meal that you had that hurts your health, right? That's not it.
It's the 9th.
It's the 9th, it's the 12th, it's the 150th. See, you don't get gum disease when you didn't brush your teeth once. It's not what happened. You don't get cavities because of the one piece of candy you ate. It's the consistency of doing it. That's what leads to it. You don't get in shape by working out once. You weren't like, look at these push-ups, 10 push-ups I did. And now you're like, I'm Jack Diesel. No, it's the consistency of it. So consistency in health is actually the most important thing. Don't plan. This is why diets are terrible, because you plan to do a short-term thing for something that you're going to eat for the rest of your life, but you plan to do only for 30 days. That doesn't make no sense. It's fine if you're looking to correct the health problem, so you do something specific for 30 days, but you should always be looking to aim to increase it long term, longer than those 30 days. It should be, you want to adopt a lifestyle habit. You don't want to adopt a momentary habit because something's cool to try, a challenge or on TikTok or whatever. No, you want to change your life. And when you transform your life, it leads to, I mean, the changes that you will see over the years, you won't even recognize your old self. You won't even recognize your old self.
But
So,
Dr. B, it's difficult to do that, man. So what do you suggest? Because we're looking at heart disease, number one killer in the world across America. You're looking at diabetes, and then you're looking at cancer.
yeah,
These things,
yeah,
and you're saying you overall life change with everything that's around us constantly. How does someone start? How does someone start? Like, because you spoke about the culture, Dr. B, and all those foods that you said is part of our culture. And
yeah.
if I'm being honest, like everybody else on here, those food taste good. They taste better than a kale sandwich. I'm not eating kale
They,
like that, Dr. B. So I'm
they
trying to
do.
understand if where does somebody that's already been doing this for the rest of their life, they could be 70, 60, 85, 23. Where do they start and how do they maintain that over time instead of it being a crash diet?
Right. Somebody said roasted kale is good. So here's how the easiest way to get started is just to get started. It's like saying, I want to start working out. Now, I guess the prerequisite to that is having the right knowledge base by which you're going to follow to do that. So your gym trainer is not your expert on preventing disease, nor is your typical MD. They don't know enough about nutrition. They don't incorporate it into their education. It's not in their medical school training. You have to go to somebody with expertise to help you with what you need help with, right? And that comes to finding a trusted physician that you trust. Okay. Now, there are several things you have to ask yourself even before finding that trusted physician. And that's questions like, how serious are you about the changes that you need to make in your life? If you're like, I don't want to make any changes, I just want to get healthier, that's not a good time. Then it's probably not a good idea to waste your time and the effort of that doctor as well. Because all you're going to do is lead to frustrations. And then you're going to say, that didn't work. You never really put the effort into it. So, first thing you can do to get started is find a good expert to help you with that nutritional advice. Okay. Second thing you need to do is look at yourself. And remember, I said about science, it starts with observation. Outcome, reality of what you see is going to be the determining factor of what determines what you do, right? So I could tell you, oh, this diet is great. This diet is great. This diet is great. Well, let's look long-term at the effects of those diets. For example, ketogenic diet. A lot of people do it, they lose weight. Looks like it's great. Short-term, 10 plus years leads to all-cause mortality. Heart disease, oh, you get that with ketogenic diets. Cancer risk, you get that with ketogenic diets. You get all these things long-term, not 1 year, not a year and a half. I'm talking about 10 plus years, 5 plus years. You start to see this. Okay.
And they would have to sustain it for, like, so you saying if they did it for 30 days, it could affect them 10 years down the line?
Well, no, what happens is if you do it for 30 days, you end up yo-yoing, and that's not good. So you need to find something that you're going to do sustainable for 5 plus years. Like, if you can't do your diet for 5 plus years, you don't need to be doing your diet like that. That's just the reality of it. I don't see why you would, unless you're correcting a very specific health condition, which I would assume you were under the guise of some kind of supervision in doing that anyway. But so if you want to get started, the best thing to do is just to get started. Decide how serious you are, right? Decide what foods are going to be in your life that are contributing negatively towards your health, and do a food diary. I always do this with all my patients. I start with a food diary, 7 days. It's for me initially, but I find it very beneficial for them because most people don't even realize what they eat. Most people, if I say, hey, fruits and vegetables are good for you. Like, I know that. I'm like, you don't eat fruits and vegetables, do you? And they're like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, do a 7-day food diary. And they'll have no fruit within that 7 days. Not one. So I'm like,
So you're
but
saying, so you're
but you know it's
saying,
good for you.
yeah. So now you're saying one of the ways to be effective in a change is to write down what you're eating.
Yeah, because it builds intention into what you're eating. So we were talking about the mental aspect as well into food. Food is chemical. Okay, food is it's not a, we now eat food for emotions. Okay, but food is a chemical reaction that causes your body to either have health or lose health. That's it. Period. Like no emotion, all emotions taken out of it. That's what food does to you, biologically.
Mm-hmm.
When you eat the foods that you eat, how do you feel?
Fantastic.
Like, like that's the part that matters the most. How do you feel when you eat the foods that you eat? So if you're eating, if you go on a 3-day fried food binge, right? How do you feel after those 3 days? If you feel good, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I feel good emotionally, but then do you feel sluggish? If you're like, yeah, I just don't feel right. I just can't. I have a harder time getting out of bed. I have a harder time recalling things. Then maybe the foods you're eating are affecting the way you're thinking. So try changing that and seeing how you feel. Okay.
But you can
So
only
start
see
writing
that if you
down.
write it.
Yeah, you have to start writing down what you're eating to actually know what you're eating. Because most people do not know what they're eating, myself included. Doesn't matter how conscious you are, you think you are. Write down what you eat, and then you'll see, like, man, I don't. Here's a fun fact of nutrition. Fiber is associated with good gut bacteria, which causes good bowel movements. So, which causes more mental clarity, which causes better skin, cause better digestion, lower rates of diabetes, lower rates of heart disease, lower rates of cancer. Okay, from fiber alone. 98% of Americans don't eat enough fiber. 98%. That means you can literally probably you could go around and just point at everybody and assume nobody's eating enough fiber because it's 98%. Only Maury statistics are higher than that.
So let me.
Only those are the only statistics that are higher than that. Maury statistics on not on paternity. So, you know, if we write down what we're eating, that wouldn't come as a surprise to us because we would say, yeah, I'm not eating enough of this. I do need to eat more of this. And it doesn't mean you have to all of a sudden. Here's a simple suggestion for everybody: start lowering all cause disease immediately. Make one serving of salad every 2 days. By a serving, I mean like a cereal bowl amount. Take some leaves, shred them up, throw it in there. Throw some, the small tomatoes, whatever you want. Throw some peppers in there, preferably not green peppers, but throw some peppers in there. Throw some olive oil and salt in there. Don't use dressing because that negates it, because dressing is full of chemicals and all sorts of nasty stuff that is meant to make you hold on to more weight and fat and stuff like that. Throw that in there. Throw a little bit of salt as a seasoning. Throw in avocados, and then eat that every couple of days. And you watch how your blood pressure that's slowly rising as your life increases, starts to stay stable or starts to lower 1 or 2 points. Just simple thing like that you can do. I'm talking about a cereal bowl. And you can't tell me it's expensive, because you could buy a bag of salad leaves at the store for like $1.99. So that's not expensive at all, So we have to prioritize our health. And if we don't want to do that, then we have to do some deep soul searching first and really question ourselves about that.
So one of the tips you said is to write down what you're eating, so that we could get a better understanding of what's going into our body. The second thing is something as simple as incorporating a green salad, no green peppers. There's a couple questions in the chat, but while we're on the subject, why no green peppers?
Oh, because of it's the way they're picked and grown. They have a tendency to be more toxic chemically, with certain phytochemicals that are inside of them that the other peppers will not have, like the orange, red, yellow. That's why they're more expensive. And those
Okay.
are cheaper. That's just why.
So now
It's
I
not.
want
It's
to
not like.
ask.
Hold on. I
Yeah.
want to throw an
Okay.
addendum. It's not detrimental to your health.
Gotcha.
I'm just throwing it out there as just an option. Or
So
somebody.
now, there's another question in the chat that says, "What are your thoughts about the Weight Watcher program? They make their clients keep a food journal. What are your thoughts on the Weight Watchers program?"
That's why Weight Watchers is effective, because people are conscious of what they're eating for the first time. The criticism of Weight Watchers is it gives you points to. It's not based on science of correcting health. It's based upon monitoring yourself, which is fine. It's a good start because you become conscious of what you're eating. But then the problem is, like, you could accumulate a bunch of points and then binge eat a bunch of garbage that you shouldn't be eating that might be more detrimental to your specific health condition that you don't want to be eating. But because you're fooled into thinking that I could use these points, so it's okay for me to eat this. No, it's not how health works. So it's good, just not for correcting health issues. It's good because it makes you conscious of what you're eating.
Cool. So now another question came in the chat. It says, is it okay to incorporate vegetarian 3 times a week, then throughout the rest of the week incorporate your chicken, fish, and turkey?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not, you don't have to, it's not an all or nothing thing. It's a slow progressive change towards a healthier diet. So, I'll eat a burger and fries. I'll do that. I don't eat meat, but I'll eat like a veggie burger and fries, right? And that's not health food. I'm not in any delusion thinking I'm getting healthy or this is good for me when I do that. I understand it's completely emotional, and then when I do it, right? But it's also not my daily eating. Okay.
Yeah.
I can count the number of times in a month that I've had a burger. Okay. So because of that reason, that's what you actually want to make it. You want to make it more normal that you're having meals that are full of greens and things like that. And even if you eat meat, I want to clarify this. I'm going to make it very clear. There's no nutrient in meat that you need. The meat industry nobody's ever died of not eating meat. Okay. You die of not eating meat. Okay. There's no essential nutrient that's exclusively found in meat that you need.
So then what do you eat?
We eat meat because we want to eat meat.
But I'm saying, like, you say you don't eat meat, you have like veggie burgers and stuff. Like, I'm gonna be honest, one of the things that I struggle with is finding alternative foods. So in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of other people can agree, I don't believe I will ever not be able to not eat meat, because I'm gonna get tired of chickpeas, I'm gonna get tired of salad, and I'm gonna get tired of, like, eventually I'm gonna look. I'm maybe not veggie burgers. I like veggie burgers, but I don't know. And I'm sure a lot of people struggle with finding the alternatives. If you don't eat meat and you don't need meat, what are the day-to-day alternatives? Because sometimes you open a fridge and you want a sandwich.
So I want to make this very clear, because some people might think that I'm giving a personal opinion as opposed to a scientific opinion. Well,
Okay.
Brian, that's just you, Doc. You don't like meat. That's why you're not doing it. You have your own reasons for not eating meat. The World Health Organization, every nutritional organization on the planet has labeled meat a carcinogen, which means, remember, obesogens generate obesity, carcinogens generate cancer. Okay? Every nutritional organization on the planet has confirmed this, and every nutritional organization on the planet has also confirmed that phytonutrients, meaning nutrients found in plants, are anti-cancer foods. So if you want to increase your anti-cancer foods, you have to eat more phytonutrients, point blank period. I don't care how you slice it. Now, on the meat thing, what do I eat as an alternative? I forgot, what did you say your background was, brother? Where was your parents or lineage from?
My mother is Guyanese, my dad is American.
Guyanese, that's right. That's right. So for those who've been blessed to eat foods from different countries, who've eaten Jamaican food, Cuban food, such, right?
Delicious.
Delicious food. They will have plates of rice, beans, right? Plantains, yuca, uh, I'm trying to remember the name in English, but different types of potatoes, like sweet potatoes, things like that.
Hmm.
These foods are good for you. And there's plenty of reasons why they're good for you. And so this concept that we can't eat like that, it comes from something new, being exposed to something new, but it's not new. Because if you go to a Cuban restaurant, you will have you get your you get your meat, but you also get your rice and beans. You also get your plantains. You also get other things. So you don't have to give up your meat to include the other things. And you're right, eating a salad. I'm not a rabbit. I don't like to eat salads all day. I'm just sit there and eat salads all day.
Yeah.
But why not eat cauliflower? And let's put it this way. Here's a meal. Why don't you make some chicken with some cauliflower, some brown rice, some broccoli, and then some beans? Why not do that?
It's not bad. I'm not a
The
fan of
simple meal.
cauliflower, but
Like,
it's not
why wouldn't
bad.
you enjoy that? Or why don't you take some carrots, shred up your carrots, take some squash, you can mash it up, mash up some tomatoes. Um, you could use some cabbage. You can make yourself a nice little stew, and then you could chop some beef in there. So that alone is another type of meal, like a soup. Patients have a soup jumu that they do, and it's it's essentially like a squash type soup that's the base of it, and then it has a bunch of veggies inside there, and then a lot of them throw beef inside there. Why not do that? Like it does. This idea of it has to be steak and potatoes. This mentality has to go away because it is killing us. So you don't have to change it if you don't want to. I want to make that clear. You don't have to change it, but then you're not going to stop heart disease from taking somebody in your family. You won't. It is going to be the outcome that will happen. You will have people with diabetes in your family. If you want to be unhealthy, there's things that you do to be unhealthy. If you want to be healthy, there's things you do to be healthy. So
So,
it's up to you, but
so
that's just
not
the facts of it.
okay. So now basically your decision, do what you want with your life, but you got the facts basically.
Right. Oh,
So
hold
now,
on a sec. Hold on a sec. Somebody said Guyanese food is the best.
oh no, no, no.
We're not gonna go there. I'm Haitian, bro.
All right. Somebody also they want you to address a diet and enlarged prostate, cause and cure.
Oh, okay. Enlarged prostate is very, very, very simple to deal with. A lot of people. So enlarged prostate, the research is so clear on this. It's almost laughable. Um, so if somebody comes and they have increased PSA levels, first thing they need to do is start getting on an anti-inflammatory diet because their prostate is inflamed, it's enlarged. So you need an anti-inflammatory diet. Well, I just told you some of the bases of an anti-inflammatory diet immediately. You need to get a lot of those phytochemicals in there. You need a good amount of zinc in there. You need a good amount of selenium in your diet. You need a good amount of vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E. You need to get these things in your diet.
And
Um,
what are those foods?
so um, your your colorful foods are going to be rich in those. Your rooted foods are going to, so your colorful foods like carrots, things like that, are going to be richer, or lycopene, tomatoes. That's what you look for, the colorful things. If you want the minerals, this is actually an issue in this country because a lot of our food is minerally poor, regardless of how we eat. So if you have an enlarged prostate, that's typically a condition. And so I don't mind using supplements to help. While we fix the diet, I use supplements to help pair those two, because supplements means just simply in addition to what you're doing. So while you're doing the other things, you need to add supplementation into that. You can add supplementation into that to make it an easier transition. And so there's products that you can use that contain these things that have zinc. You can start taking zinc and selenium. Brazil nuts are actually a very good, rich nutrient source of these things. So eating literally a handful, like I'm talking about a palmful of 10, 20 Brazil nuts a day, or less than 20, 10, 15 Brazil nuts a day can start to help with your PSA levels for your prostate. But what caused it in the first place? Dairy, high amounts of dairy. And in particular, when I say dairy, I mean animal, like cow dairy.
Milk.
Pasteurized milk is in particular, because there's unpasteurized milk you can get, but you have to prepare it right to eat it, or ingest it, I should say. You don't necessarily eat it, but pasteurized milk creates it, and so does high meat diets. It's just a fact. Erectile dysfunction for men as well, because it creates Remember, I said it creates vascular damage. If it damages the heart that needs a blood supply, well, the rest of your body needs a blood supply too. And so when you create vascular damage, one of the number one cause of erectile dysfunction, and you can see this in the as they demonstrated in the documentary Game Changers with athletes. They demonstrated those who ate a plant-based diet for a certain amount of days. They're not vegans or vegetarians necessarily. They just went more plant-based, meaning they incorporated more plants into their diet for a specific time period, reversed their issues. They reversed high cholesterol. They reversed erectile dysfunction and things like that. You were able to see these things in hard data. So that's why I said outcomes are the best data, because it's things you could actually see.
Okay. So now you said colorful foods like carrots, tomatoes, leafy greens, or something that you had mentioned before.
Yeah, because
Increasing the consumption of those things on a daily basis,
yep,
and reducing the amount of meat that you consume.
yeah,
So switching those two things, so that's the basis of it, and those can reverse the effects of enlarged prostates and all those things. You mentioned
yeah.
supplementation. What do you supplement with those foods? And can we buy stuff over the counter to supplement or make a tea or something? What is the supplementation paired with that kind of information?
Absolutely. Herbal medicine is incredibly important for the prostate as well. There are certain herbs that are beneficial. Dandelion is one of them. So dandelion is a common weed that grows in your yard. The problem with sometimes using those things is you have to worry about pesticides sprayed on them. But getting dandelion root tea, root and leaf tea, it's good. Great way to clean out the kidneys and protect the kidneys. And chronic kidney disease is something we see very common, particularly affects Black people worse, because our kidney function is different. So utilizing utilizing dandelion, something very simple that you can do. Something like milk thistle is also good. It's protective for the liver, which also helps get rid of some of the toxins that we have. Women who have high fibroids, they have menstrual pains, things like that. Using certain herbs for the liver, it can be very beneficial. So, it's simply incorporating dandelion and milk thistle are two good herbs that you can incorporate in your regular that are good for your health.
Okay. So colorful greens like carrots and tomatoes, leafy greens, reduced meat, and pair that with dandelion and root tea in the morning or at night or something
Yeah,
like that, and the herbs, and mix it into your food is naturally one of the most powerful things to do on a regular basis to see effective change, correct?
absolutely. Yep. You summed it up perfectly.
Okay, so now I want to take that notion of eating better foods to change your body as we wrap up here, and it's a question based off of, I've read, I've seen it. Dr. Sebi said a lot of disease starts within the stomach, and a lot of disease. The reason why we get disease, regardless of what it is, it's it derives in the stomach and the intestines. How do we naturally reduce belly fat? First of all, obviously we know we can't target belly fat, and it's whole you lose everywhere. But what are the most naturally effective ways to drop weight to reduce the amount of disease we hold in our stomach and intestines?
Right. So belly fat is an interesting one because it can't be targeted. You can't just be like, I got rid of fat here, but no other fat around the body.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: we have to start respecting the body as intelligent. Okay, we have to respect the body as intelligent. So if you want to see a change in one area of the body, you have to understand that all areas of the body are connected, which is why you can't target one specific area for something. So developing a good, healthy exercise routine. Now, this is important for women in particular, because I see a lot of women go through this. They'll want to lose belly fat in particular, and then they'll start doing high interval intensity, workouts. They'll start doing HIIT workouts, they're called.
Yeah.
Now, HIIT workouts work differently in women than they do men, because women are different from men, like the hormone profile. So you'll see some women and they react very well to HIIT workouts, but then there's a lot of women who actually will put on more weight or have a hard time losing weight by doing HIIT workouts. And this is because of estrogen metabolism in the women. And estrogen has a lot to do with bone density and muscle growth and things like that. So sometimes what a woman thinks is like the healthiest thing for her to target a workout routine, because based off popularity, is actually not the best thing for her to do. So if you want to, but if let's say you want to target belly fat, well, when you start changing your diet, right, you're going to start seeing, you won't see a weight loss change. And this is kind of confusing for people. Weight loss does not correlate necessarily with fat loss. They're not the same thing, because when the first thing that happens when a patient starts getting healthier and they start losing weight, they're on their way to weight loss, their clothes will fit different before their weight changes. And that's very discouraging for a lot of people, because they're like, I'm working so hard, my clothes fit exactly the same. Well, it takes a long time for your body to deal with excess body fat that it was using to store, because in body fat, not only do you have body fat, but then you have fat within cells that your body has to clear out. And then you also have fat within, so you have fat within your like your adipose tissue, but then you have fat within your muscle cells as well that's built up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the idea of you burning that off and then building more muscle to kind of replace that. So, and then there's toxins within that fat that also have to be dealt with. So it's a longer process than people think. It can't be done like just in a week. So the best thing to do is develop a healthy workout routine that challenges you and varies it up, works on a lot of intrinsic muscles, because the stomach is not used to do crunches. It's the main function of the stomach muscles is to balance, like when you're moving, to stabilize. It's what the stomach is for. So when you work on intrinsic muscles, and women, this is very important because a lot of women will have prolapsed bladders or uterine issues after they have children later on, because the intrinsic muscles, the core stabilizing muscles in their body, are weaker. So you want to make sure that you're doing a workout routine that actually works on that. And sometimes they're very boring looking. It's a lot of like,
Colds.
hollow body, holding a medicine ball on this side, holding it on this side, or it might be light jogging. Things like that are very good for the core intrinsic muscles. But on disease in the stomach, because this is important as well, your immune system is primarily located in the stomach. One of the best thing you can do for your health is to start incorporating fasting. Fasting is incorporated in every religious system on the planet, and it is given as a prescription to us. Right now, Muslims are in the holy month of Ramadan, where they are engaging in 30 days of fasting. So, and then fasting is, in every single religion, there is some kind of fasting portion assigned to it, where you abstain from food. And the reason this is important is because in fasting, you not only allow the body to begin to break down and detoxify, but then you also will enter eventually into regenerative phases where your immune system increases. So we want to talk about, how do you increase your immune system? We'll start incorporating fasting into your life. So start out by incorporating like 8-hour fast where you do nothing but drink water or black tea. If you're not going to fast, then start drinking start in the morning of drinking lemon water to help clean the mucous membrane, because on the lining of the inside of your body has a lining, and harmful bacteria and viruses and things like that, they attach themselves to that lining, and then that's how they get into your bloodstream and then hijack your cells. So you want to make sure you clear that up. Drink a warm cup of lemon water in the morning, first thing, and it helps clear some of those things out of your body. You want to make sure that you're having proper bowel movements. And by the best way to do that is to increase your fiber intake. So, but if you're not having a good fiber intake, then using something like aloe, you could use the gel and very little bit of the leaf, like blend it up inside of like some smoothie, and that'll help you regulate your bowel movements and go more frequently. So you want to increase your fiber intake, and maybe even look towards supplementation to help you increase bowel movements. So for the audience, I don't know if you guys know, healthy bowel movements, 2 per day should be normal for everybody. If you're not in that zone yet, your gut is compromised and you're holding on to toxins and they're getting recycled through your liver because your intestines are holding on to them, and then you're recycling that stuff, and then it comes back through, and then you recycle it again. You want to get it moving and out of your body. So you'll realize how much garbage we hold on to in our bodies when you fast for prolonged periods, because you won't be eating, but you'll be having bowel movements. You know, like, where is this stuff coming from? Because we've been holding on to it for a while. So licorice is something good to incorporate, but not if you have high blood pressure, because it can increase your blood pressure. But that's also something good to incorporate for gut health, liver health, things like that. What else?
That's first of all, thank you, because that information you just gave us is more than arms us to make better decisions. We got quite a few questions, but I want to make sure we wrap this up in a good time. So how do you fix diastasis recti?
Okay, so diastasis recti, for people who don't know what it is the separation of stomach muscles. So I don't know if you've ever seen people. You'll see sometimes people with really, really nice abs, like a 6-pack, but their abs are like separated, and there's like in the middle of their stomach. It's like, so diastasis recti.
Like a tunnel.
Yeah, it's like the tunnel essentially of the abdominal muscles. It's very common for women to experience after pregnancy and such. Well, one of the things to do for preventative measures, because I want to throw that out there, this is why it's good to have a good core before you go through pregnancy, so you're prepared for that. Doing crunches may not be the best exercise necessarily to prevent that, but leg lifts are better.
Because it works the transversus muscle, abdominal.
Yes. So, and then another option is, and then you also have like your psoas that you're also working when you do those things, which doesn't get worked as much when you do crunches, stuff like that. I don't want to speak beyond people, though. For those who aren't familiar with anatomy and muscular physiology. What you wanted, a simple thing you can start doing is just start strengthening your pelvic floor muscles and start strengthening your intrinsic muscles. So
how do we do that?
Yeah. Stomach vacuuming. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It doesn't.
That's a bodybuilder term. Yeah.
It doesn't mean you take a vacuum and take your stomach. And not enough. So if you ever seen those like aesthetic,
the bodybuilders.
Yeah, well, bodybuilders do it too. So a simple way you could do it is holding your breath and then seeing if you could suck your stomach in and then push it out. See if you could suck it in and push it out. Because what you're doing is you're learning to control the intrinsic muscles of your stomach, and that will start to re-strengthen some of those muscles. Also, developing a good core exercise is important. Something like planks are actually incredibly important for stabilizing the core, but not just planks, but also doing tables, the reverse. I would say get yourself with somebody who's a good physical therapist or knows what they're doing physically, not just a personal trainer who's looking to build muscles aesthetically, but somebody who's about functionality of muscles.
That's right.
A chiropractor, physical trainer, a personal trainer or a physical therapist, they may also know how to do these things very well. So even when you do a plank, a lot of people do planks incorrectly, and I'm sure you see this all the time. There's ways to better engage the core. Then you have things where you can lift a leg off, and that engages different muscles and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're stabilizing all your core muscles, which goes from not just your abs, but your lower back, your thighs, your hamstrings, your glutes, your butt, things like that. And you'll start to fix some of those muscles. And then breathing is incredibly important in that process. Learning to properly breathe, not through chest breathing, but through stomach breathing alone. So that's a very specific thing. And so I don't want to go too deep into that because I want to get to some other questions.
But I will say this just to make sure everybody understands. When we say the transversus muscle, it is a line of muscle that is used for strength, correct, Dr. B?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you use leg lifts are things that require ab workouts that require your legs, it works the transversus muscles, which increases core strength, correct?
Yes.
So now the most important thing to understand, and if correct me if this is wrong, if this is too old school, but I was taught that when you know that you're working your transversus muscle, if your thighs start aching when you're doing an ab exercise.
That's a good point. I always say that's probably true in most cases, but there could be exceptions to that, but that's probably true in most cases. It's not a bad way to go by it. And that's why I would say something that specific would require working with a trainer to make sure that you're doing things properly.
Okay, so folks, you have what you need to eat better, to take care of your body. You need to eat bright foods like carrots and tomatoes and leafy greens, reduce the amount of meat consumption, but you can still have some. And then you could drink your teas like dandelion root tea and black tea and things to help with different kind of inflammation.
Hibiscus tea is great for high blood pressure.
Say it again.
Hibiscus tea is great for blood pressure and
hibiscus tea.
Circulation. So
final
question. Don't add alcohol to it. No more this sorrel thing. Yeah, I caught you guys. I know my people.
I don't think these people in the chat is gonna be drinking sorrel anytime soon. Last two questions came up a few times. Well, yes or no? Is oat milk good?
As far as taste, I don't know. As far as
for your body, like
for your body, it's not bad for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's better than regular milk, pasteurized milk.
Yeah. Well, the issue with pasteurized milk is it's just so chemically laden. It's full of antibiotics. Like it's
processed.
You got to understand, it's so processed. These cows. Do you think these cows are getting veterinarians visiting them and making sure they're healthy? No, they're just fed antibiotics in their food. Remember, mad cow disease was because they were feeding cows to other cows. Why do you think the industry was doing that? This is not a health industry. It's an industry designed to make money. We got to stop. I want to disabuse us of the delusion that the food industries that are designed to make money, that throw away food while there are starving people on the planet, are there to make sure we're eating healthy. No, they get away with what they can get away with. So we don't need to look to them for health. And unfortunately, unless you have your own cow that you know is well taken care of, it's eating grass, and you're milking it itself, and it's not on these pumps, because women, if you've breastfed before, you know how aggressive it feels to have something pull at your breast. These cows are being pumped through machines and being fed hormones to constantly lactate. Do you think that somebody's checking to making sure these cows aren't bleeding? No. So what do? They add chemicals to dye the milk that we consume from pasteurized milk in the store. And then we have things in the store, like if you read your milk, there's a label on milk that talks about a growth hormone, that talks about a hormone that's added to milk. And they're like, oh no, it's perfectly safe. It's this long, really small print warning that's written on milk. And I'm like, you realize it's banned in Europe. It's not accepted. It's not accepted in Europe. It's accepted in the United States. And they swear it's okay. And all of Europe has decided, no, it's not good for you. So, I don't want us to be in a delusion that thinking that the food industry is out for our health. It's not.
Man, well, I believed you. I believed you the first time you said it. So last two questions is, does fasting decrease inflammation in the body?
Absolutely, but done in the right way. Okay. So if you're very sick, when you fast, it's a detox, and so you're going to cause things that you're storing in your fat cells to be released, and it's going to make you sicker. So if you don't do it in the right manner, it's going to be very difficult. So start by fasting to the best of your ability. And sometimes starting by fasting to the best of your ability means, here's the easy way to fast. Everybody can start incorporating a fast into their life. You go to sleep, you wake up. I don't know what time you regularly eat. Let's say you want to say, I want to make it to noon before I eat. But you can't make it to noon before you eat because you feel sick. Makes you feel sick. Start incorporating a smoothie. And don't do anything but smoothies until noon. And for these smoothies, make sure that you throw some spinach in there. Make sure you throw a banana. Here's a simple formula for everybody for a smoothie. Get some frozen vegetables. Some frozen fruit. Get frozen blueberries, strawberries, a medley, whatever. Take a handful of those, throw them in there. Take a banana, throw it in there. Take your almond, oat, whatever milk you want. Throw some of that in there. Take some spirulina, sea moss, whatever. throw that in there, blend that up, drink that. Do that as much as you want until noon. Then at noon, have your first meal. And that's how you can start incorporating fasting. So hold out as long as you can, and then maybe do that smoothie. And then use that smoothie to get you to the time that you want. And then fasting becomes easy mentally, and I'll bear witness to that, because the first time I fasted when I was younger, I could not fast half a day at all. It was so challenging for me. And now I could fast. I do 4-day fast, 3-day fast. I do a 3-day fast every month, and it's nothing for me. So no food, just water for 3 days. I don't even do coffee because I don't like it.
Wow.
And it's easy for me because mentally I'm in the right space to do that. So, but don't start there. You will hurt yourself doing that. So
I'm not starting there, but I got you.
No, start off with small. And it's actually a great way to lose weight and to really become conscious of how your body feels with the food that you're eating. That's why food diary noting is very important as well.
So food diary, colorful foods,
Yes,
herb teas,
yes,
fasting,
yeah,
supplementation with smoothies.
yeah,
The core of what we've been talking about tonight to prevent heart disease, cancer,
yes,
diabetes, and
absolutely.
protect you in somewhat against, the COVID-19 vaccines, because your body will be ultimately healthier.
Right. And even if you get the vaccine, you still have to do these things to be healthy. It is not a cheat code, because
Yeah.
remember, you're still around people, and people are still spreading illness to one another. So this is why it is wise to give yourself the best possible chance you can by being the health. You deserve it. You deserve to be healthy.
So last question.
Yeah.
Is taking a laxative a good idea?
I would say doing a bowel cleanse at some point is a good idea, but not to make you go to the bathroom regularly. So there are ways you can do things that will increase bowel transit time, so you go to the bathroom more regularly and such, but you don't have to rely upon that. So if you have a lot of um, poop that's stored in your stomach, and you're like, I just been constipated constantly, then using something like, there's a tea called Smooth Move. It's by Traditional Medicinals. Using that to increase your bowel movements, not a bad idea every once in a while. If you feel like you need to clean yourself out, you haven't been eating the healthiest, maybe try it. Not something to rely upon. And a lot of these laxatives they'll push your body very, very strongly, and you don't want to do that. So you don't want to make that a regular habit. So using something like a plant that makes you go to the bathroom more regularly is a better idea. And there's plenty of plants that do that. Like I mentioned, that's why I mentioned aloe doing it before. It's a great way to loosen the stool. And if you're properly hydrated, you should be going to the bathroom regularly if you're increasing your exercise, etc.
Bonus question, and I'm curious about this one. What about liquid chlorophyll?
Liquid chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is great for us because, for a million and one reasons. Nothing wrong with it. You just got to be careful of where you get the source from some of these things. So you mentioned earlier, like over-the-counter things. Do not buy supplements from Amazon. Do not do that. Do not, because they're not tested and they're not coming from factories. Anybody can make themselves a seller on Amazon, print any label, put any capsule in there, and sell it to you, whether it's expired or not, whatever. So do not do that.
So what do you get?
Yeah. So if you want supplements, then there's a couple of good ways to get it. If you have a healthcare practitioner, they often have access from the companies directly. Like I have a practitioner account that I add patients to that lets them purchase supplements at their leisure. And it goes straight to them, and it's from the companies. So it's verified and tested, not expired products, and they're clean products. Liquid chlorophyll is not a bad idea. It's great. If you eat things like sprouts, if you include things like sea moss, if you're doing things like spirulina or other algae, then you're fine and you don't necessarily need it. But it can be good for blood disorders. So start increasing liquid chlorophyll.
Like blood clots.
And for fatty liver disease as well. Yeah. These things are good for that. It's not going to be a cure-all for these things, but it definitely supports those systems better.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. B. You, as always, hit us with so much information that the questions, they're still coming in. Well, we're gonna have to get you back for part 3. We're gonna get you back for part 3 because there's still so many things that people want to ask. I hope everybody was able to enjoy what you heard tonight. Make sure you go follow my man, Dr. B. La Vie Naturelle. We're gonna definitely put it up, put
I
the
put my
website up.
site in there.
Yep.
So on my site, I'm redesigning my site in a special way to have a lot of patient education. So in there, I'm trying to categorize it. I have a lot of writings I just haven't uploaded yet, but you will find some writings on there, and sometimes they're extensive. And I try to make them very simple so that people can understand them. But you can go on that website. I will start offering classes soon. I don't know how soon in the future, where it's going to be educational classes like this, where I'm going to go into detail on like heart disease, reversing the condition, what you need to know. And I will use like a simulated lab as an example and show what I would do to reverse their heart disease, things like that. So go to the website, check it out. I'm always going to have resources on there. I'm going to start attaching an affiliate link so you can find exercises. You'll be able to find yoga programs and things like that. Very affordable, very cheap, and things for free. Like I'm trying to give as much away for free as possible so people start improving their lives. Yeah. Because I don't want you guys to have to rely on getting donuts with a vaccine for your health. Like that don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. Or being given weed with vaccines for your health. Like this is getting ridiculous. Like that's not health. That's not health. And so I want to make sure that we're taking all precautions at the end of the day to make our bodies work best. So.
And you let us know how we can support you financially too, because we know that it's not just on like how we say in church. The church isn't held up by amens and praises. So you let us know how we can support you financially. If it's the donation part of your website, we'll definitely go check it out. We would love to support you, man, because you have supported us on an incredible way.
I appreciate that. I will add up. I will connect the donation. Like I never thought about doing that, but that actually would be a good idea because that'll allow me to continue work I do in the community, and that'll also help get certain equipment and things like that. So I will add that to my website. So stay tuned for that on my website. But I appreciate that offer. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, well, we're thinking about you. You providing an incredible resource for us, man, and you've educated us and empowered us to make better decisions for our life, and that's priceless. And that's things that sometimes we get a 30-minute visit with our doctor, and we try to ask the questions that we remember, but we have you, and you give us all the details that we need and answer all the questions. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. We're definitely going to be checking out your website. We're definitely going to be checking out that link to support you so that we can help you touch more lives. You helped us and blessed us. We want to help you bless somebody else. So Dr. B, man, you got something else you want to say?
No, just, thank you so much for your guys' time. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I got into this field to help people. And so it's nice having a community of people who are looking for the help so that I can offer it, because trust me, I didn't want to suffer through all that stuff in medical school to not be able to help people.
Amen to that. On that note, thank you so much, everyone, for your questions, for being a part of this interactive Temple Talk. This is Temple Talk. I'm your host, John McLeod, and for Dr. B, aka Dr. La Vie Naturelle, make sure you go visit him on all social media platforms that he's on and visit the website. We appreciate you, and we thank you, everyone. Continue to have an amazing, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, everything healthy